Hey there, how you doing? I've been a secret Paladins enjoyer for a long time now. I've made plenty of Overwatch content on this channel, but it was not my entry drug into the hero shooter genre. And despite me not having made any videos on the subject of Paladins, it was my first love when it comes to hero shooters. And while Paladins and Overwatch are often lumped together in being very similar games, they do have some very key differences that I think work in the favor of Paladins, especially with recent events in both games. We are going to start by talking and comparing the basic gameplay and their characters, and finally with polish and dev responsiveness. But before we dive in, do give that like button a flick, and if you want, you could also give that subscribe button some love as well. Totally optional. Totally. Right, let's talk about that gameplay. While Overwatch has its very tight-knit and well-designed gameplay that allows you to play exactly how they intended, it leaves little room for player expression. I am not the first to complain about this, but if you haven't heard somebody talk about it, allow me to attempt to fill you in a bit. For example, when you watch a Reinhardt Pro play, it will look very similar to how other pro Reinhardts play. When you play Reinhardt, even you will play with a similar style, because Reinhardt isn't so much a character as he is a role. That's not to say that playing your role or jumping from role to role isn't fun. I have a metric ton of hours in Overwatch. Trust me, it's fun. Maybe with a dash of self-hatred, but still fun nonetheless. The truth is that Overwatch 2 just feels very shiny and sanitized. It's got masterful presentation, don't get me wrong, which is half the battle, but in the end, its replayability just cannot hook me enough to complete an entire season of content. I haven't gotten one mythic skin, and I've bought 3 battle passes in this game. Each time a new season comes out, I play it a bit, lose interest, rinse and repeat. And now with the loss of Overwatch 2's PvE, which I'm sure you're tired of hearing about, I've lost so much interest in the current state of this game I once adored. This brings us to Paladins. So why did I get into Paladins? Well, you see, Paladins and Overwatch released pretty close to each other, and I didn't really have enough money to buy Overwatch right when it came out. I was a broke bitch, so to enjoy that experience that I thought looked fantastic, I went to the free-to-play alternative, Paladins. Now, Paladins has had its rough patches. Just me saying the word OB64 likely sends a streak of PTSD through every veteran player watching. It has shot itself in the foot so many times and in so many different and unique ways that I can't possibly fit all of that into this video. But if that subject is intriguing to you, I recommend Raven Trick's video on the subject. It's fantastic. I will link it in the description. But to get back on track, Paladins presently plays like current Overwatch. That same similar gameplay, capture the point, escort the payload, but with a major twist that sets it entirely apart. Paladins' player expression for their roster is fucking fantastic. Sure, there's some balancing issues. Sure, there's some characters that feel really unpolished, but there's this intense charm in each design. And not to mention, each character is incredibly customizable to your playstyle. It has 3 big systems that support that fact. Its card system, its item system, and its talent system. And don't worry, I know how that sounds, none of this is pay to win. The card system allows you to build different decks, each card affecting an ability or base stat. And when you select the cards you want, you can buff up each card to a max of tier 5, and you get 15 points to distribute as you please. For example, the poster boy for Paladins, Androxus, has 4 cards that buff his ability, Defiance. This ability acts as a powerful melee punch. One of these cards allows Androxus to earn back 1 ammo into his chamber for each time he hits an enemy with Defiance, and every level you put into that card, the ammo count goes up by 1, so you could effectively be getting back 5 bullets for 1 punch at max level. This has, as you can imagine, a massive impact on the playstyle of Androxus, and this isn't counting the many other builds that are completely viable with his kit. Now let's move on to the item shop, which is pretty similar to the card system, but it applies much broader buffs. It isn't character specific and is also kind of Paladins' response to not allowing you to swap champions mid-match. A lot of people complained that with Paladins you can't counter other people on the fly like in Overwatch, but Paladins has this very clever system that helps them deal with that in a more unique and interesting way, in my opinion. For example, there's a buff in the item shop called Resilience. It lowers the strength of crowd control effects on yourself. So if an enemy team is playing incredibly crowd control heavy, you can build Resilience and heavily move the odds into your favor. Each item has 3 upgrades that you can purchase that improve that base stat, and you purchase these upgrades and the items with a currency that is only earned during your match and does not carry over match after match, if that makes sense. So when you get kills, capture the point, or work to complete objectives, all of those things earn you points that you can spend on items, almost meshing MOBA with FPS in a very clever way. It really helps you be able to make small adjustments to your overall build on the fly. Smart item shop purchasing really can make all the difference between victory and defeat. This then leads us into talent. Talents are the biggest game changers for each champion. Continuing with my guinea pig of Androxus, let's take a look at his. He has Defiant Fist, which gives you 10% bonus damage on your melee ability when you land a successful shot with your revolver, maxing out at 100%. Godslayer allows your reversal ability, which acts as a damage blocker, to fire back at projectile, dealing a hefty 800 damage. And finally is Darkstalker, which would allow your dash 3 extra charges as well as making them no longer linked. As you can see, these pretty much function as what you build your card deck around, essentially leading to there being 3 major playstyles for each champion, meaning you can find a character you adore but don't love and then build a playstyle with them that meshes perfectly with you. It's fantastic. So in terms of gameplay, Paladins allows that player expression that Overwatch feels like it limits. Keep in mind, I adore Overwatch, or I should say adored, but Paladins, there's just so much more depth. Each matchup can play so differently from game to game. It just feels so much fresher even after all this time. It's aged like a fine wine, whereas Overwatch is a bit more of the milk variety, at least right now. Now that we've talked about the differences in the gameplay of these two, let's talk about the polish and the dev responsiveness. It comes as no shock, I imagine, that Overwatch wins this half of the argument. I mean, it's called Blizzard Polish for a reason. Paladins, while playing well in the gameplay department, is definitely rough around the edges. Crashes, server crashes, abilities that bug, and many more issues. Paladins can be frustrating at times to deal with. I will not deny that, but it does work the majority of the time, at least for me. The highs of this game heavily outweigh the lows in my opinion, and with its vast portfolio of characters and cards, you can spend a nearly unlimited amount of time delving into Paladins, which I really just can't say is true for me when it comes to Overwatch. But what about those devs? In terms of which devs actually feel like they care for their game and its community, this has to go to Paladins, especially with recent events on Overwatch's side still being a fresh wound. Paladins devs just dropped their 5-year anniversary update, and it came with a slew of new skins, free premium currency, and free champion unlocks. They love to give back to their community, and by playing 15 matches of Paladins, which equals about 3 or so hours of your time, they give you a massive amount of things to enjoy, something Overwatch just doesn't do anymore. Hell, Overwatch used to give only 1 crate for their anniversary. That's it. Paladins gave away 4, not counting the special limited token they gave away this anniversary, a token that allows you to pick any previously locked skin from the previous battle passes in the game and get it forever. And that's just for playing 15 games. Overwatch at max will hand out 1 epic skin, rarely. And when they do, they just expect us to act like they're the messiah. While Paladins developers have been rough to deal with in the past, and they are not infallible whatsoever, it really does feel like they at least still give a shit. Otherwise, this game would have died a long time ago. I don't know. Something about Overwatch 2 just feels so hollow, which sucks, because Overwatch was once so full of vibrant life. And that's not to discredit the programmers and artists that work on Overwatch 2. I'm certain there are those that love Overwatch and its community and are so happy they get to work on it. But nowadays, Overwatch 2 just feels very corporate, very dull, but Paladins has me hooked, and I'm hitching on for the ride until that falls apart too at some point, which I'm sure will happen. Regardless if you love Overwatch but hate Overwatch 2, I highly recommend playing Paladins, as the anniversary event will be going for the next month or so this is the perfect time to hop in and at least give it a try. If you enjoyed this video, do give it a lovely little like, and if you'd like to see more content like this, I typically make videos on cute little indie games, as well as these more AAA oriented ones. So if that sounds like a vibe, give that subscribe button a pet, but most importantly, have a goddamn wonderful day, and don't die.